Good morning and welcome to our interview series with our 2021 Hope Rising awardees. Today I'm joined by Matt Robertson, who's currently serving as the Director of Relational Advancement at Agape International Missions. Matt is a 1992 PLNU alum. He received his bachelor's in English and Literature. He also received his master's in Organizational Leadership from Eastern University in 2010. Matt's work spans the intersection of faith and justice. And in his current role at Agape International Missions, that group has a fantastic motto, a mission statement that says that AIM does whatever it takes to end the evil of child sex trafficking. We work to relentlessly rescue, heal, and empower survivors to be free. We believe that every child is worth fighting for. And Matt is still serving the PLNU community as the current president of the PLNU Alumni Board and as an ex officio member of the PLNU Board of Trustees. Welcome, Matt. We're happy to have you today.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think we'll just dive right in. I'm wondering, what made you get involved with anti-trafficking work, or what inspired you?
Well, it all started back when I was missions pastor for a church in Texas before moving back to California, Northern California, where we currently live. But when I was at the church in Texas, we were working in remote villages in northern Vietnam. And we were doing economic development work there, working with business people, farmers, doctors, and nurses. And when we would go visit communities, we would find out that the night before, children had been abducted from those villages. And we later found out that those children had been abducted and taken into China. Across the border, very porous border there in northern Vietnam. And a lot of that had to do with the single child policy from years ago in China. And so there was a shortage of girls in China for men to marry. And so children were being abducted out of these villages that we were trying to help and trying to bring the light of Christ to, but also help them economically and bring good medical practice as well. And so that really impacted me. I began to learn more about anti-trafficking. This was way back in 2010, 2011, 2012. So I started to learn more about anti-trafficking. And when we moved to Northern California, I was on staff at Bayside Church here in the Sacramento area. And I was working on their anti-trafficking efforts because of my passion that it originally started in Northern Vietnam. And we partnered with AIM, Agape International Missions, as an organization. It was doing a lot of excellent work, a Christ-centered organization that was fighting trafficking with a holistic model. So I got to know more about AIM through my time at Bayside Church. We put on a number of events, and that really helped me find, I guess, legs, as it were, to my passion for trafficking. It introduced me to an organization that was doing a lot of great work, honoring Christ in the center of everything that it was doing, which eventually, as I left staff at Bayside, it led me to be on the team here at AIM, which is where I've been for the last 3.5 years now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. This kind of work demands communication and collaboration and a level of trust with the team that you're working with. Could you briefly touch on maybe some of the challenges of working in anti-trafficking?
Well, I think the biggest challenge really is the spiritual warfare that we're involved in. We feel it as staff here in the US, as we are pushing new initiatives, pushing new partnerships, raising more money to support the work that we do. But you can certainly feel it in Cambodia, walking down the streets there, places where it's the most horrific evil, children that are being held in captivity, that are being trafficked daily. You can feel the spiritual oppression. Our team there, we have over 400 now on our team in Cambodia. They're on the front lines of this. They feel it every day. We can go and visit and encourage them, support them, visit them, but we get to come back to the comfort of our homes here in the US, but we still feel it. Again, you can feel attacks against you, against your family, that is very real and very tangible. It makes it difficult to stay in this fight sometimes because it can become so discouraging, but there's always hope. and there's always the next story of the girl that's been rescued and that is restored, and is now an abolitionist, now fighting the fight with us. So that always keeps us encouraged.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That encouragement is what keeps you going. What are your self-care practices?
Great question. So daily devotional time, daily time in the Word, daily exercise, whether it's working out at the gym or walking in the on the trails behind our home, but just getting outside, getting fresh air, and then just spending time connecting with friends, and in a healthy way, being able to disconnect from the realities of what what we're dealing with every day, but also finding humor in among the team. So we joke around. We try to keep things as light as possible because we know that what we're dealing with is very dark and very heavy. So a good mix of humor always helps as well.
Yeah, completely. Do you think that maybe could you think of something that folks maybe have a misunderstanding about when it comes to human trafficking, or maybe some sort of education work that AIM does that you're particularly passionate about?
Well, I think people don't realize how pervasive it is, not only around the world, but also in our own backyards. It's certainly happening in our community here in Sacramento. It's certainly happening in San Diego, not only within the community, but it's certainly across the border. So I think people for the longest time have been blind, or just not aware of what's going on, not only around the world but also in their own backyards, and how sometimes we inadvertently fuel trafficking by what we do, whether it's through watching pornography or through some of the things that we may purchase where children are being trafficked, children labor trafficking. It's not just sex trafficking, but it's also labor trafficking as well. And so I think the more that people can become educated about this issue, why it's happening, how it's happening, and where it's happening, I think can certainly help to overcome just the general lack of information and knowledge that people have.
Yeah. And for folks who do want to get involved, what kind of resources would you point someone to if they want to get involved in anti-trafficking work, this kind of active abolitionist type work, like you've been saying?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great resources out there on the web, certainly on our website, AIM's website, aimfree.org. We have plenty of resources for individuals who want to get involved. There's documentaries, there's books that people can read, there's films about anti-trafficking work, about trafficking that's happening, about AIM's work in particular. We have a new documentary that's coming out called Tending Clouds, which features the story of one of the survivors, a girl that was trafficked, that was rescued, and is now an abolitionist. That film, we are going to be starting screenings at churches around the country. So we're excited about that. But yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. If you just Google anti-trafficking work or anti-trafficking missions or anti-trafficking efforts. But certainly, like I said, on our website, we do kind of have a one-stop shop where people can find plenty of resources to learn more and then find what they can do to be involved in the fight.
Completely. Thank you for sharing that. What are your next goals for human trafficking prevention?
Great question. So we've just recently expanded to Belize, the country of Belize. We've been in Cambodia for 15 years now. We're expanding to Belize, which is a lot closer to the US. So it's going to make it easier for people to see and visit our work there. One of the things that we're dealing with is the trafficking that is fueled by American tourism, particularly cruise ship passengers, people that go down on cruise ships and engage in the trafficking with children, which just blew my mind when I first found out about that. And so
Wow.
we're really trying to create awareness for people to know what's going on, to speak up against it, to see the signs. Certainly within the prevention area for us, a lot of it is education, not only educating people, but educating children. So wherever we go, we create schools. Because when you can educate a child one, they're going to be able to see the signs and be able to help avoid that danger themselves. But also, when they have an education, their parents see them as having value. So, unfortunately, a lot of times in these trafficking situations, parents are actually trafficking their children just because of their dire economic situation, their extreme poverty. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has only exacerbated those situations of poverty around the world where children are being sold for food to
Mm,
help feed the other members of the family. And so by providing food in some cases, but also by providing education for children so their parents see them as having value, will help prevent those children from being trafficked. Certainly, we've seen that in situation in Cambodia where we have a school for over 500 children that we know of. None of those children are being trafficked, yet those children come from a community that was once an epicenter for child sex trafficking. So education certainly does work in preventing children from being trafficked.
yeah, completely. Thank you. Thank you. You talked about how AIM is starting to grow in Belize, expanding from Cambodia. What kind of challenges do you think are associated with taking work in one specific location in Cambodia, let's say, and then trying to translate that work maybe in a different context in Belize? I mean, this is obviously a global issue, but how do you kind of adapt this curriculum or approach to helping keep children safe for locations that are all around the world that share different contexts or understandings around these issues?
Yeah, a great question. So obviously there's going to be cultural differences, there's going to be societal differences, which we want to be very sensitive to. There's also issues of corruption. So
Mm,
16 years ago in Cambodia, the system was very corrupt. There's been a lot of legal judicial reform to help improve the system so that when we go out, well, we have a SWAT team that is legally allowed to operate within the country, works with the anti-trafficking police there in Cambodia. When we go and conduct a raid and rescue the girls that are being held, we also work with the police to arrest the traffickers. And we know that those traffickers are going to be prosecuted because there are laws that are in place. But not only that, those laws are being enforced. So a lot of times that's the issue. There may be laws, but they're just not being enforced. So as we go into Belize, we have an eye to not only what are the laws, but how are they being enforced? Um, and how can we work with the government agencies and other organizations that are there working on judicial reform to make sure that not only when we rescue the girls that they're going to be protected legally, but also as we arrest the traffickers that they're going to be prosecuted, because when you start to prosecute traffickers the word gets out, and there starts to be more awareness around the community that maybe this behavior isn't going to be tolerated anymore, and people start to look for alternative economic means so that they can support their families, support their communities, but not have to get involved in the trafficking of people.
completely. Totally. You're talking about this kind of multifaceted approach. This is a global approach to this issue. I'm wondering, obviously, this question will have a very kind of regional or contextual answer, maybe. But what are some of the biggest gaps in services that you're seeing that maybe these children need?
Mhm. Yeah, so in Cambodia, we have in place a holistic model that starts with rescue, moves to restoration, and then reintegration or empowerment, where we provide jobs for survivors so that they don't have to go back into the life. Um, we have a 99% success rate right now of girls that have been rescued, that go through our restoration, and then when we can provide a job at the end, it makes a huge difference. The average rate of success within the country of Cambodia outside of AIM's holistic model is about 10%. So when you've got Christ in the middle and you've got a job at the end, there's a 99% success rate, in addition to all of our prevention efforts, which I mentioned some of those before. So the challenge in moving into a new context is, what are some successful practices or organizations that are in place that we don't have to replace? we have a great holistic model that we want to see working, but what are some things that are lacking? And one of the things that we see that's lacking a lot in anti-trafficking work is the provision of jobs, so employment. So it's great to rescue the girl and get her or the child, the guy or the girl, to get them out of that situation, and provide a restorative environment for them. It doesn't help to rescue them if they don't have a safe place to go. So that's important. But then what about after that restoration period, after that time when they're healed, they're ready to reintegrate back in society? Do they have a job? Do they have successful means of employment? Have they been caught up on their education if they've been trafficked for many years? So oftentimes those jobs and employment is a gap in the model that we're seeing and that we're trying to step into that area.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's not something that I think I immediately thought about, like employment. So thank you for that. I have one final question for you. Thank you for your time today, but I'm wondering, what gives you hope?
Well, other than just the gospel of Christ and the transformative impact of the gospel of Christ, seeing that hope played out, seeing the transformative impact of the gospel of Christ played out in the lives of these survivors, girls that have been through horrific situations, enslaved, many of them raped 10, 15 times a day, to see them restored and healed and come out on the other side, full of the love of Christ, to share with others and to want to get involved in this fight to help rescue other girls or educate other girls, or to create awareness of what's going on in their own communities. And in addition to that, not only lives that have been transformed, but the communities that have been transformed. So for example, SPIPOC Cambodia, where AIM, the center of our work is right now, was once a center for child sex trafficking in Southeast Asia. Children were being bought and sold on the street. Pedophiles were traveling from all over the world to visit SPIPOC Cambodia. That has all been shut down. And where there once were brothels and massage parlors and karaoke lounges, where girls were being trafficked, and like I said, children were just being bought and sold on the street. That's all been shut down. There's now a church, a school, a community center, employment center where the girls work. And so through the love of Christ and actually a planting of a church in that community has been transformed. That's only possible through the love and the blood of Christ. And so that's what gives me hope, is to see the gospel in action, to see Christ's love in action, not only in individuals, but also in an entire communities.
Yeah, it's all about that balance, and with God in the center, everything comes together. Thanks so much for your time today, Matt. And we're so thankful for your work in anti-trafficking, the contributions that you're making globally to a safer and healthier and more Christ-like world. Congratulations again on receiving our 2021 Hope Rising Award.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your time today.
Thank you. God bless you. Thanks again for the honor.